Hello, YouTube. For the last 3 years, my family and I have been housing insecure. I won't say exactly what our living situation has been for safety reasons. We were displaced from our home in 2020 through a combination of criminal aggression, burglary, death threats, and social services harassment. These same people who victimized my spouse, and also another group who criminally victimized us with burglary and threats of attack and violence, as well as physical pursuit, actual physical aggression. These two groups filed false reports to social services with the aim of targeting my children. Now, everybody knows that family is off limits. When you have somebody who is your enemy, anybody who has any kind of integrity is not going to go after your family to try to hurt you, to get back at you. But there are people out there who are so unscrupulous that they'll do just that. One of these families was involved with organized crime and drug trafficking and drug use and substance abuse and a variety of other criminal activities. I tried to get legal aid, I tried to get home repair assistance, and I couldn't get it. I tried to get them to intervene against this group other than just talking to them, but they wouldn't take the necessary steps. Law enforcement where I lived told me I should abandon my home and that the criminals were going to come back and they were going to retaliate. It was an absolute certainty. I didn't own any weapons. I thought that we would be able to get the house fixed eventually. These people did thousands of dollars in damage to critical systems in the house. And amid that, I was also dealing with the same people filing false reports to social services to try to inflict a form of terrorism against my family using the social welfare agencies. No charges were brought against these people. These people got away with what they did. We were displaced from our home, and our home sat vacant for 3 years, with criminals coming to harass potential investors every single time that they showed up. The criminals were my neighbors. They lived across the street from us. And government would not do a damn thing about it. I don't mean to dwell, but I have a foreclosure on my credit now. My house ended up having to be auctioned. The bank came and took possession of it because it had been destroyed. All the windows had been broken. And there was other damage to it. Holes had been shot in the front of the house with some kind of projectile weapon, maybe a .22 caliber pistol from the looks of it. My grass was 12 feet high when they repossessed the property. And they ended up auctioning it for less than what I owed. So I had to make other arrangements. But because my credit was ruined on account of the fact the mortgage company wouldn't take the property back and they were reporting the payments as missed, I couldn't do anything about getting a place that was financed again. And I ended up losing my house and not having permanent housing. And on top of that, I had to worry about swatting from social services. For 6 years, that has been a concern, following the death of my spouse, because she was a special victim, a victim of sexual assault that was drug facilitated, for at least 16 years. That is absolutely atrocious. It's horrific. It's an injustice. What happened to her is unforgivable. And what happened to us because of social services harassment, their terrorism, is even worse. They pushed my family into homelessness. That's what they did to us. They allowed criminals to use anonymous and false reporting to push us out of our house in our community during the pandemic. And I can't even express in words just how strongly I feel about that, how negative my feelings are towards the agency, wherever they are. I have the utmost contempt for that government agency. They're victimizing and they're destroying families during the pandemic, and they've been doing it since long before then. They're a menace to American freedom. They're a menace to the Constitution. They're a menace to special victims and victims of crime. Because you've got criminals who are weaponizing false reports to the agency to attack their victims subsequently after the initial crimes they've committed against them. That's DARVO, people. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. That's classic DARVO. I'm a survivor. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor. I learned what I had to do to stop these people. And I did very effective reporting. I turned in evidence to prove my claims. And I am still waiting for the authorities to finish process of that evidence to go and prosecute these people and stop them from attacking innocent people. It has to stop. People can't live under constant oppression. They can't live being afraid, well, if I have a public address, is someone going to show up at my house to attack my family, to try to interrogate us and harass us? Do I have to buy weapons to defend myself from the very institutions that are supposed to protect and serve victims of crime? I'm not a radical. I'm a survivor. And violence is something that I've been subjected to my entire life, and I never retaliated. I never tried to hurt, to physically harm any person who hurt me. I just tried to escape from them. That's what I've spent my entire life doing, is trying to avoid being harmed by anyone, avoiding being threatened by anyone, trying to avoid those situations. I'm not a coward. I'm a pacifist. But the time for pacifism has ended. The time for taking a firm stand and stopping these people from continuing to do this to others, to victims, to innocent people, people who they deem or perceive to be vulnerable. They have to stop these people. If you're a person who's being subjected to these things, you have to stop the people who are doing that to you. You need to get vocal about it. I have sent thousands of letters over the last few years about these circumstances that have affected my family and how our lives have been so thoroughly destroyed by these people. I couldn't get legal aid. I couldn't get home repair assistance. I couldn't get retaliation protection from people that were trying to weaponize social services against my family. I had to take very assertive action on a preventative basis to protect my family and prevent us from being victimized further by the government that was supposed to protect us in the first place. That's bullshit that somebody has to do that. People looked at me and they got the entirely wrong perception of me. They had this false mental image of who I was based off of my appearance. And they couldn't have been more wrong. I might look white and I look like I'm in great shape, but people have no idea what I've been through. They have no idea what any of us have been through. And I hate the fact that it came to the point that I had lost almost everything I worked for in my life simply because people did not want to give us support and assistance with the circumstances. Why they didn't believe the story or why they didn't want to give us help with what we were dealing with, damage from the storm, crime damage to the house. I'll never understand it. They expected everything was going to be okay. There's a threshold that you reach economically and emotionally and psychologically. There are many different thresholds that you can reach where you lose the capacity for recovery. And that's the threshold that we got to. I got sick, physically ill. I was stressed to the absolute limit, to the point that I was having asthma attacks constantly. I was having anxiety attacks. My children and I were having nightmares. And even before the pandemic, we were being ignored by people. And I said, you know what? To hell with this. Finally, I just gave up. After almost 4 years of fighting, I just abandoned the house because I couldn't fight anymore against the oppression that we were living with. And now home prices are soaring, and utility rates more than tripled where my house is located. And it's been terrible down there. We got out just in time. The crime has been unprecedented. It shouldn't have come to this. It shouldn't have come to the point where I had to figure out my own solutions. And it's just getting harder and harder to live for people with such circumstances. That's what's going on.